My name is Alara, and for most of my life, I measured my worth by the quiet hum of domesticity, the gentle rhythm of a well-kept home, and the achievements of my loved ones. I was the sturdy oak in our family forest, believing my strength lay in my stillness, my unyielding support. My world revolved around my wife, Lyra, a woman whose vibrant spirit always felt like a warm summer breeze, and our daughter, Willow, a creative soul with a gaze as deep and thoughtful as a twilight sky. We lived in Oakhaven, a town nestled between rolling hills and a winding river, a place where time seemed to slow and community ties ran deep. I worked as a landscape architect, my days spent coaxing beauty from the earth, designing gardens that mirrored the tranquility I so craved in my own life. Lyra, with her boundless energy, was a marketing consultant for Viridian Ventures, a rising tech firm known for its innovative campaigns. Willow, just 18, was poised to leave for the Elysian Academy of Arts, her heart set on animation. Our life, from the outside, was a tapestry woven with threads of contentment and shared dreams. But beneath the surface, a silent current pulled at the foundations of my carefully constructed peace. Lyra's work trips became more frequent, her phone calls less spontaneous, her presence more fleeting. I dismissed it, attributing it to the demands of her ambitious career. Viridian Ventures is growing rapidly, Alara, she'd say, her voice a little too bright, a little too rehearsed. They need me. I wanted to believe her, needed to believe her, for the alternative was a chasm I didn't dare peer into. One crisp autumn evening, as fallen leaves danced in the gentle breeze, Lyra announced she was going on a 2-week retreat to the Starlight Sanctuary in the distant coastal town of Azureport. It was, she explained, a high-level strategic planning session for Viridian's next major product launch. It's crucial, Alara, she'd emphasized, a real game-changer for the company. A knot tightened in my stomach, a familiar unease I had learned to ignore. Azureport was known for its secluded beaches and vibrant nightlife, a stark contrast to the quiet focus of a corporate retreat. But I simply nodded, offering a gentle smile. Of course, my love. Do what you need to do. I packed her favorite herbal tea, a cashmere scarf for the cool ocean evenings, and a journal, hoping she might fill its pages with reflections on her work, or perhaps on us. The 2 weeks stretched into an eternity. Willow, usually so effervescent, felt the shift in the air too. She became quieter, her artistic endeavors a refuge. We spent evenings in comfortable silence, me tending to my indoor herb garden, she sketching in her notebook. We were 2 ships passing in the night, both feeling the absence of a guiding star, but neither articulating the growing void. When Lyra returned, it wasn't with the joyous reunion I had anticipated. She arrived, not with the light-hearted stories of colleagues and breakthroughs, but with a palpable distance, a veil I couldn't quite penetrate. Her usual vibrant glow was replaced by a more subdued, almost fragile luminescence. A month later, the truth arrived, not in a dramatic pronouncement, but in a hushed confession. One evening, as the first snowflakes of winter began their gentle descent, Lyra sat me down. Her voice was barely a whisper, her eyes downcast. Alara, she began. I need to tell you something. From Azureport. My breath caught in my throat. I braced myself, expecting an admission of a challenging project, a promotion that would take her further away. But what followed was a sentence that shattered my carefully constructed world. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air, heavy and cold, like the winter sky outside. Pregnant. My mind reeled, trying to reconcile this with our reality. We hadn't been trying for another child, hadn't even discussed it. The silence in the room became a roaring tempest within me. Pregnant. I finally managed, my voice a thin, reedy sound I barely recognized as my own. But how? Her confession was agonizingly slow, each word a shard of glass. She spoke of a colleague at Viridian, a shared vulnerability during the retreat, the allure of something new, exciting. She spoke of a mistake, a moment of weakness, fueled by the intoxicating atmosphere of Azureport and the demands of her high-pressure job. She painted a picture of a woman lost, seeking solace in a fleeting connection, a narrative that sought to explain, but not excuse. I listened, my heart slowly turning to stone. The vibrant summer breeze I had loved so much had become a chilling gust, tearing through the tender leaves of my trust. My oak, once sturdy, felt hollowed out, ready to crumble. Breaking the news to Willow was an entirely different kind of heartbreak. We chose a Saturday morning, the kind that usually promised pancakes and laughter. Instead, a solemn cloud hung over our kitchen. Lyra, tearful and remorseful, delivered the news. Willow, initially confused, then horrified, turned her gaze from her mother to me. And in her eyes, I saw not just pain, but an accusation. "How could you let this happen, Mom?" she cried, her voice cracking. "How could you not know? How could you not stop her?" Her words pierced me deeper than any of Lyra's revelations. In Willow's young mind, my quiet strength, my trusting nature, had somehow been a complicity. My dedication to peace had been misconstrued as weakness, my unconditional love as blindness. I was the one who was always there, always steady, always home. And in her grief, she lashed out at the most constant presence in her life. "Willow, it's not your mother's fault," Lyra interjected, reaching for our daughter, but Willow recoiled. "Isn't it?" Willow's voice was raw, laced with betrayal. "You're always so calm, Mom. Always so understanding. Didn't you see? Didn't you feel something was wrong?" I felt a profound helplessness. How do you explain to your child that sometimes love means trusting even when doubts whisper? How do you articulate the slow erosion of a foundation, the subtle cracks that appear before the collapse? Couldn't. I simply stood there, absorbing her pain, her anger, feeling the weight of it settle on my shoulders. The following months were a desolate landscape. Lyra moved into our guest room, a physical manifestation of the chasm between us. Our home, once filled with the warmth of shared life, became a quiet museum of broken promises. Lyra was consumed by guilt, a silent shadow moving through the house, her once bright spirit dimmed by shame. Willow, meanwhile, retreated into herself. She spent hours in her room, her sketchbook her only confidant. She spoke to me in clipped sentences, her eyes avoiding mine, the accusations still lingering in their depths. Her dream of Elysian Academy, once so vibrant, seemed to fade into the background. I saw her vibrant light dimming, and it was agonizing. I was losing not just my wife but my daughter too, or at least the effortless connection we once shared. I knew then that I couldn't simply endure. I had to reclaim myself not just for my own sake, but for Willow's. I realized that my quiet strength, while admirable, had also been a form of silence, a reluctance to voice my needs, my fears. I had merged my identity so completely with my family that I had forgotten where I ended and they began. One afternoon, sitting in my garden, amidst the blooming hydrangeas I had meticulously tended, a quiet resolve began to bloom within me. I decided to confront the silence, to break the pattern of enduring. I began by setting boundaries gently but firmly. I told Lyra that while I would support her through the pregnancy, our marital relationship needed space and honesty if there was any hope of repair. I started attending counseling, a place where I could voice my pain, my anger, my confusion, without judgment. I also began to speak to Willow not about Lyra, but about us. I shared my own hurt, my own bewilderment. "Willow," I said one evening, as we sat on the porch swing, watching the fireflies dance in the twilight, "I understand why you're angry. I understand why you feel let down. And I promise you, I am trying to understand it myself. But my love for you, and for our family, is unwavering. And sometimes, even when you love someone deeply, you can't control their choices. My silence wasn't a choice to let harm come to us. It was a choice born of trust, a trust that was unfortunately broken. But I'm learning to speak up, to stand firm, to protect my own heart, so I can better protect yours." It wasn't an immediate fix. Trust, once fractured, heals slowly, like a broken bone knitting itself back together. But Willow listened. Her walls, initially so high, began to show tiny cracks, letting in slivers of light. She started asking questions, not accusatory but curious. "What does it feel like, Mom, to have your trust broken?" she asked one day, her voice softer than I'd heard it in months. "It feels like the ground beneath you shifting," I confessed. "Like everything you thought was solid suddenly isn't. But you learn to find your own footing again. You learn to trust yourself, to stand on your own 2 feet, even when the world around you is uncertain." I found solace in my work, pouring my emotions into my designs, creating spaces that spoke of resilience and new beginnings. I reconnected with old friends, sharing my story, finding strength in their empathy and unwavering support. I started taking long walks by the river, letting the steady flow of water remind me of life's continuous movement, its capacity for renewal. I began to rediscover the parts of Alara that had been submerged beneath the identity of wife and mother, the parts that were simply me. The baby arrived in late spring, a tiny boy with Lyra's dark hair and a surprisingly serene demeanor. Lyra named him Leo, meaning lion, a name that felt both ironic and hopeful. Seeing Lyra hold him, a new kind of vulnerability in her eyes, I felt a flicker of something, not forgiveness yet, but a release of the intense bitterness that had gnawed at me. This innocent life was not a consequence of betrayal alone, but a separate, breathing entity that deserved love and care. Willow, initially hesitant, eventually held her half-brother. I watched from a distance as a gentle curiosity softened her features. The anger hadn't vanished, but a new emotion, perhaps a budding compassion, was taking root. She still hadn't fully reconciled with Lyra, but her interactions with me became warmer, more open. We talked about her art, about her dreams for Elysian Academy, which she was now reconsidering. "I don't know if I want to go to Elysian anymore, Mom," she admitted one afternoon, her gaze distant. "Everything feels different now. Maybe I need to find my own path here for a while." Her words resonated with me, echoing my own journey of self-discovery. "That's okay, Willow," I said, putting an arm around her. "Sometimes, the most important journey is the one you take within yourself, figuring out what truly makes your heart sing, what truly makes you feel grounded. And wherever that path leads, I'll be right here, your steady oak." Our family was not mended, not in the way it once was. The tapestry had been unraveled, and though we were trying to reweave it, the pattern would be different, perhaps stronger in its resilience, but forever changed. Lyra was still grappling with her choices, seeking her own path to redemption. She was considering leaving Viridian Ventures, seeking a role that allowed for more presence, more intentionality. For me, the journey was far from over. I had learned that self-respect wasn't selfish. It was essential, that healthy boundaries were not barriers, but rather guardians of the heart. That true strength lay not in silent endurance, but in the courage to speak one's truth, to feel one's feelings, and to choose oneself, even amidst the deepest love. I still loved Lyra, a different kind of love now, perhaps more knowing, more complex, stripped of its former naivete. Whether we would find our way back to each other as partners, I couldn't say. The ending was open, a winding path stretching before us, shrouded in the gentle mist of uncertainty. But as I looked out at my garden, at the newly planted sapling that would one day grow into a mighty tree, I felt a sense of peace. I was still Alara, the sturdy oak, but now, I was an oak with deeper roots, with branches that bent and swayed with the winds of change, yet never broke. And that, I realized, was a strength far more profound than any I had ever known.